Hi guys, welcome to the Art of Server. So in this video, I want to introduce you guys to this computer that my son and I built over this past Christmas holiday. If you've been with my channel for a while, you know that my son has a HP Z800 that he's been using as his primary desktop computer. And he's had that for several years now. And we finally decided that he would get an upgrade. And this time around, we decided to build a custom PC instead of buying a workstation. And the reason why I want to share this with you guys is because it's not just a normal desktop PC. This is actually both a server and desktop computer. And I don't mean a computer that is serving both purposes. There's actually two computers in this case. There is a desktop PC and there is a mini ITX motherboard that serves as a server that's running TrueNAS Scale right now. So this type of build I thought would be really interesting for some of my customers who have contacted me, and they watch a lot of my videos and they've seen the rack mount setups and stuff like that. And although that sounds interesting to them, that just isn't something that is practical in some situations. Sometimes people are living in smaller spaces that really don't have the room for a rack mount setup. And on top of that, some people just don't want to have a rack mount setup. They don't like to use up their home space for such a thing. And so if you're into a compact build where you can have your desktop PC and your server all in one case, I think you're going to find this really interesting. Or you simply don't have the room to have a dedicated server, like basically running a dedicated computer just to be your server. You might want to check out this video some more. All right, so before we get started, do me a favor and hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm so more people can benefit from this video. I really would like to get this video out to as many people as possible. So if you can hit that like button for me, I'd really appreciate it. Also, if you know of anybody who might benefit from a build like this, feel free to share this video out. All right, so let's get into this. So like I said, this is a desktop PC / server hybrid build. And the case that I'm using right here is the Phanteks Evolve X. And this case has provisions for a mini ITX motherboard to be installed together with the standard ATX motherboard. And so we picked this case out specifically for that purpose. And plus my son really liked the design of this case. And this is actually a very high quality case. It is, I don't know of any plastic parts on this. The entire frame is aluminum. This is aluminum. The top panels are aluminum. The side panels are glass, but it's not just glass on a frame. It's the entire piece is a tempered glass side panel, and they're hinged, so they open up just like a door, like that. So anyway, it's a really nice case. This case allows you to install both an ATX, a standard ATX. Here, we'll take a look inside here. You can install a standard ATX motherboard in the usual location and set up your desktop PC that way. But up here at the top, right under the top panel, is a mini ITX motherboard installed upside down. And so both of these systems are running in this case. And you'll see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hard drives, and there's actually 2 more hard drives down beneath this I guess the PSU cover here. So there's a total of 8 hard drives in here. Now these 8 hard drives are not connected to that desktop PC. They are connected to the server motherboard up there. And so that server motherboard runs TrueNAS Scale, and the desktop PC motherboard is running Fedora Workstation 37 right now. So let me open this guy up and we'll kind of go into the hardware a little bit more. All right, so the desktop PC is a ASUS TUF Gaming X570 Plus motherboard, and it has a AMD 5900X CPU in there. There's a total of 64 gigabytes of RAM in those the RGB RAM modules right there. And that GPU is the AMD RX 6700 XT. And so that's the main setup for the desktop PC side. The cooler is a Noctua one, and behind, so you guys might recognize that. That's one of the HBAs that I sell in my store. And so that's a 9201-8i LSI HBA card. But that HBA card sitting in this PCI riser is actually connected to that mini ITX motherboard up there, and that's the server component. So we'll get into that in a little bit here, but I just want to kind of finish telling you what's on the desktop PC side. But you might not be able to see it here, but behind the HBA card there is a 10 gig Mellanox network card. So that's the main desktop PC. Now, so let me describe a little bit more about that server. So the server itself, the motherboard is a Supermicro Xeon D motherboard. I believe it is a Xeon D1541. So it's an 8-core, 16-thread Xeon D CPU. So it's very power efficient. It's got 64 gigabytes of RAM in there as well, and a M.2 slot which has an Intel Optane 118 gigabyte drive in there. And there's also a SATA DOM, which I don't think you're going to be able to see here, but there's a SATA DOM, a 16 gigabyte module where the OS is installed. And so that is then, there's a riser, there's a by 16 PCI slot that is connected to a riser cable that goes behind the motherboard tray and comes down here. And so that's why the HBA is installed down here. So normally this case, the way it was originally designed was to basically have a dual system, so that I guess people who do a lot of live streaming or something like that, I guess a few years ago it was recommended to have a main system for playing whatever game you're playing, and then having a dedicated separate system to do the live streaming. These days I think you can do that all in one anyway, so there's really no need to do that anymore. But when I heard about this case and that it had this the possibility of installing a mini ITX board, I thought, hey, this would be a really interesting case to build a server hybrid desktop machine. And so normally this riser with a vertical slot is for the GPU for that mini ITX board. But since I'm using this to build a dedicated storage server, we're using that for the LSI HBA instead. And that LSI HBA, you can see these two SAS cables. They go over there and behind the motherboard tray, and then they connect to all these drives. And these are enterprise SAS drives. They're Hitachi Enterprise 4 terabyte SAS drives. And so that's what I'm using. And one more thing, you can see this little silver box down here. So this is a 10 gigabit, a MikroTik 10 gigabit switch, and it's got four 10 gigabit SFP plus ports. I have one port connected via a copper to SFP module with this copper cable. It's just a Cat6a. It's a short run that goes up to the server motherboard. And the reason for that is because the server motherboard also has a 10 gigabit NIC, but it is a copper port, so we're running the copper. And there's also, you might not be able to see it here, but there is an SFP plus DAC cable that goes out the back and then goes into that Mellanox card back there. And so the desktop machine and that server machine are connected via this 10 gigabit switch. So this is also something that I thought would be pretty interesting to some of you guys. So if you've wanted to run a 10 gigabit network, but you don't have, let's say you're renting a place and you're not really allowed to dig behind the walls and run cables and stuff like that. A lot of people really just want the 10 gigabit network to connect between their primary desktop to their storage server so that they can transmit files and stuff like that really quickly. And so this basically has a built-in 10 gigabit switch that connects the desktop computer to the server computer, and it has 2 extra ports that you can then connect to some other computers if you have another one where you want to connect it via 10 gigabit. 10 gigabit network internal to this chassis, desktop PC, and a server computer. And I don't know if I mentioned it, but that also has 64 gigabytes of RAM in there as well. So yeah, this is what we're running right now. You know, other than the case being able to install both a mini ITX and an ATX motherboard, the other, I guess, secret sauce to making this all work is this PSU down here. So this is the Phanteks Revolt X. That is a PSU that's actually made by Seasonic. So if you've been around computers and stuff like that, you probably have heard of Seasonic. They make some of the best power supplies for computers, and this is one where I guess they've incorporated some dual PC technology into a Seasonic power supply, and it's basically rebranded Phanteks Revolt X. And so that's a 1200 watt power supply that has the ability to run 2 systems. So both of these, the server and that desktop, are running off of that system, and you can independently power on and power off each of these systems. So, but there's a caveat, because you basically have to share some of the SATA power, like the 4-pin Molex, SATA power, PCI power, and stuff like that. Those are shared between these 2 systems. And so whenever one of these systems, at least one of these systems, are powered on, then all of those power rails basically turn on. And so if you turn on just the desktop computer and you don't turn on the server, these hard drives will get power. Now, they don't necessarily spin up because the HBA doesn't power on, so it doesn't signal them to spin up, but they are getting power. If you shut down or suspend the desktop machine, so long as the server is still running, these hard drives will get power. And so the cool thing about this is that you can run these 2 systems more or less independently. So you could have this low-powered server running all the time, basically. And for the desktop side, you can either shut it down or you could suspend it. You could do whatever you want with it, and it'll still keep the server components powered on. Of course, the PCIe power will still be getting power, but since you've either suspended or powered down the main desktop PC, it doesn't really matter. If power is still provided here, these things are not going to turn on. So that's kind of one of the secret sauce components of getting this to work. The other part is the fan control system for this case. Phanteks does have a fan hub in the back behind the motherboard tray, and that has some, I guess, pretty interesting behavior in terms of managing the chassis cooling for 2 different systems. So anyway, this video is primarily just to introduce you guys to this build. If you are interested in building something like this, I did record some footage while my son and I were building this. And so I'm going to follow up this video with 2 more videos. One where I will show you what we did to build the desktop PC side, and then a second video where I will show you what we did to set up the server side of this. So if you're interested in a build like this, make sure to subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss that video when it comes out. All right, so anyway, that's what this is. So let me close this, and let's get over here. All right, so let me just kind of show you guys a little bit of what's on the system here. So the screen you're watching right now is coming from that GPU, and so this is the main desktop computer. It's running Fedora Workstation 37, and here is the TrueNAS Scale web interface. And oops, I guess let me go ahead and log in here 1 second. All right, so Here is the system information. So you can see that the CPU is a Xeon D1541. It is an 8-core 16-thread CPU, and that server motherboard has it's 64 gigs of RAM, 62.7 available. And you can see that I already have a Z-Pool set up. So actually, let's go to storage, so you can see that. All right, so I already have a let's see, yep, here. So I have a RAID Z2 with 8 drives, all 4 terabyte drives, and this also has a slog device and also an L2ARC device, and that's basically coming from the NVMe Optane drive that's on the motherboard. So I basically took, it's a 118 gigabyte Optane drive that I split into 32 gigs, and then gave the 32 gigs to the slog device, and then used the rest for L2ARC. So yep, and so here, just a little visual demonstration. So I specifically picked the 9201-8i HBA for this build because that HBA has a lot of LED indicators. So you can see right there is the power LED that's always solid when you have power to the card. You have the blinking LED, and that's the heartbeat LED. And next to it are 2 really large LEDs. Those are for each of the SAS ports. And then there's an array of 8 LEDs right there. Each of those LEDs are for the 8 individual SAS lanes. So you can see whenever they blink, there's basically I/O activity going on. So just as a little visual demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and do a scrub. There's not a lot of data on here yet, so if I do this, this is not going to last very long. But so the scrub is happening, so you can see all the activity LEDs firing up right now. So yep, that's the scrub going on that pool right now. All right, so yeah, that's already 77% done. Yeah, it's going to be done really quick. There's not a lot of data on that disk pool yet. All right, so yeah, that is the TrueNAS, and also I've been working on setting up a Windows 10 VM on this machine, and so I think, oh wait, I might already have a tab here. Let me just reconnect that. Yep, so here's the Windows 10 virtual machine, and I'll just fire up the task manager here. And so you can see there are 8 threads right there, and 16 gigs of RAM allocated to that particular VM. And so that, and there's also a 40 gig disk, which is backed by a ZVol on that disk pool that I showed you earlier. So yeah, so that is what I'm working with right here on this machine, and I just thought you guys might be interested in this, so I just wanted to give you a quick introduction to what I'm building here. Again, if you think this sounds really interesting and you might want to build something like this yourself, I will follow up this video with 2 more videos where I will show you what we did to build the desktop side, and then another video where we'll show you how we set up the server side of this. And like I said, there are some caveats and some minor hurdles that we ran into when we were building this, and so I'll share all of that with you guys, some build tips and stuff like that, so that if you decide to build something like this, I think you're going to find some of those tips really helpful. So anyway, hope you found this interesting, and do me a favor, if you like this build, give me that thumbs up on that video, okay? And also, if you're new to this channel and you like this kind of stuff, consider subscribing and hit that notification bell so you don't miss my next videos. And if you want to support my channel, go check out my eBay store. I have the largest selection of pre-flashed IT mode HBA SAS controllers for your ZFS, TrueNAS, Unraid builds, or anything else that needs an HBA-SAS controller. So go check out the link down in the video description and see if you find anything there that might be useful to you. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye.